Well, good day, everybody. Today, we're going to do our first video interview, and it's with none other than our banking expert, Mr. Eric Cook. Got him all the way from the USA. So Eric is really well known in our WSI network, and he shares his knowledge really freely. And when any one of us needs some help with banking, Eric is our go-to guy. So we're intentionally doing this interview from our offices, okay? So this is just the way we are. This is how we run our business. And it's a good way for anybody who's investigating to join a franchise network like ours. They get a good feeling to see how we operate. So Eric is a good friend of mine, and he's an avid sportsman. He cycles, water sports, and he does camping. That's the part that's close to my heart. We're always camping and sharing our camping pictures. And Eric, you're an accomplished speaker and as well. And, you know, we've been friends for a long time. But, you know, this is all about you. So let's get started. Now, tell me just a little bit about yourself and where you are from at this stage.
Well, when you said we're joining you from our offices, you and I both know that the office can be pretty much wherever we happen to be at the moment. So we could do this very same thing with you in the bush and me off in the woods in the RV someplace.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that's one of the cool parts about this. So I was a community banker for 15 years. I sometimes refer to myself as a recovering banker. Did that and really kind of dove into technology and led the charge at our small little community bank. Started building websites back in the early 90s and just kind of fell in love with technology, but not just from a technology sake, but how technology brought people together and just made business easier, made it easier to connect with customers and clients and the community. You know, lots of just different life experiences on how technology made things better overall. And so in 2007, I made the decision I didn't want to be the CEO of a publicly traded bank and jump ship. And actually, WSI discovered me through a banner ad on a website called sixfigurejobs.com. I was out searching for a job, and they totally sniped me in an email banner advertisement and said, Internet Business Consultant. And I clicked on it figuring I could learn something that I could take to a real interview because I had no interest in buying a franchise. And the more I learned about what WSI had to offer and the lifestyle that I could live and convinced my wife that it was something that we could do, we pulled the trigger, and it's been 11 years ago. So,
well, it sounds a lot very similar to how I started. You know, it was probably about 15 years ago, and it's great how you get attracted to this ad, this promise of something. But there's a lot of us that have been around for a long time, so I think there's something, you know, there for it. Now, when you are considering this business, because you know you're obviously really successful, you know, where you were in banking. Did anybody like influence you or, you know, sort of made you make up your decision to go on your own and start your own business?
Well, I had a lot of people that said, what are you, crazy? You know, you're in a bank, you got 6 weeks vacation, you've got health insurance, 401k, retirement plan. You're probably going to be the CEO in the next 5 years, which comes with it, you know, nice salary. And you want to do what? You want to go build websites? Are you crazy? So I had people that were somewhat talking me out of it because they couldn't understand. My father was a community banker for 33 years, and it wasn't ever an expectation that I become a banker, but it just kind of happened and I fell into it. So I somewhat bucked the trend there and went off, and little did I know, but I had more of an entrepreneurial spirit than I anticipated. But during the evaluation process, you know, I chatted with a number of consultants that were in the WSI network, and a couple of them, Doug Schust, has become, and I say, you know, everybody that I talk about during today's show, yourself included, of course, has not only become a really trusted colleague and a business associate, and we've done projects together, but everybody's just become really great friends. And I'm just going to I'm just going to provide that blanket statement for everybody that I talk about, because the thing that I love about the WSI network is really, and I refer to it oftentimes as the WSI family. I don't want to get too sappy about it, but Doug has become a really good friend. He was one of the consultants that I talked to when I was evaluating the business, and actually got paired up with Doug because geographically he was the closest consultant to me when I had an opportunity to work with a bank before I came to Toronto for training. And I said, I'm coming for training in a couple of weeks, but I got this bank that wants to do something with me and I have no clue what I'm doing. And they said, where do you live? And I said, Michigan. And Doug was just outside of Toronto. And they said, well, call this guy Doug Schust. He's close and he'll take care of you. I also had some really good conversations with Neil Lappy. And I remember one of the things as I was talking with Neil, I think we chatted a couple of times. And one of the questions was, if you had it to do over again, what would you have done differently? And he says, honestly, he says, I would have done it 5 years earlier. He says, it's been great. I've really enjoyed it. And so now I'm on the other side of those phone calls where consultants or prospective consultants are calling me and asking questions and wanting to know, how many hours of the day do you work? And I say, all of them. Because I love what I do. And I'm, it's not that I can't ever put my phone down or disconnect from the computer, but when I was at the bank, I would come home at night and I would get on the computer and I would do websites and I would play on the internet and I would try to learn things, and it just really fit with my personality. And so, they say do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life. And that's kind of how I feel. That I was talking with a client just the other day and we were joking about, receivables and billings, and he was a commercial lender, and he says, all of my small business owner customers love what they do, but they never send an invoice, and their accounts receivables are aging and their cash flow is terrible. And I kind of fall into that trap. Luckily, my wife has taken over the books and said, this is not going to happen any longer, Mr. Cook.
I think that's one of the things we need some good support in this business. You can look at it as a one-man show, but you need someone good behind you the whole way.
You've got a lovely lady behind you as well, taking care of business. So we need that assistance. But it's been good.
So when you spoke to Doug, and Doug is the Mr. Original, he's been around, like probably the very first consultant.
Oh yeah.
In those days, you've mentioned a lot about building websites and moving on like that, but things have changed, and this is what I've found a lot in this business. It's never ending, and people ask me, what's your typical work week? And certainly mine is quite interesting and different, but what is your work week like now, because of the way that you are already sort of, I've seen you sitting on the floor in a Las Vegas hotel, running a webinar in between meetings. It was fantastic. So tell us a bit about a typical week.
Well, and it's, coming out of a structured banking environment where you get up in the morning, you put on your suit and your tie, you go into the office, you sit at your desk, you go to lunch, you come back, and then you go home. And there's a definite structure to that type of a job. And I was used to that for 15 years. And so my day now is probably more fluid than it's ever been. And I could be on the road traveling to a banking conference or convention speaking. I could be on site at a client doing strategic planning. And thanks to you, we're starting to put together some, I think, pretty powerful LinkedIn training sessions in the banking space for commercial lenders and business development officers. I could be running a webinar myself. I do a weekly webinar show called Free Webinar Wednesdays. And every Wednesday at 1 o'clock, if I'm not on an airplane or someplace else, I'll try to go live and just share some information about just what's hit my radar screen. Project calls, consulting, sometimes paperwork, although I'm probably not the best at that. So, but developing proposals and just answering questions and being available. I don't really have a set schedule. I'm trying to get more of a routine where I force myself to get up at a specific time and maybe do a little bit of reading or some introspection or maybe some writing. I don't think I'm probably spending enough time demonstrating thought leadership like I should. Getting back on the bike in the morning and kind of multitasking. I'm playing a lot of podcasts. I'm going to get a little white dry erase board and put it next to my bike trainer so that when an idea hits me, I can jot it down real quick so I don't forget it, and it's waterproof. So if I sweat on it, it's no big deal. So, but it's, if you like a structured, I do this every single day, this is probably not the world in which you would like living. But the flexibility and the challenge and the constant change just keeps it fresh and new. And like everything else that we do, you and I were talking before we went live, LinkedIn introduced a handful of new features that we now need to understand and communicate to our clients. And, so it's kind of like dancing on sand. You just never know exactly where your feet are going to land.
So you've mentioned a lot of stuff, but it looks like
I usually do.
Yeah. You're out on the road a lot, and it seems like you're generating a lot of activity. So who takes care of all the work and who delivers all the stuff that you're generating?
It's like magic. I've got little elves that just do it all. So I would say, right now I've got a great team. We've got two awesome, I'll say kids. They're in their 20s. So our godson Mark and our niece Ellie, they work for us. And one of the things my father always said, because I worked at the bank with him for a number of years, his saying was, there's nothing wrong with the nepotism as long as you keep it in the family. So that was usually kind of the running joke about the kid working for the dad at the bank. But they wouldn't be working with us if they didn't have a lot of talent. And so I've been able to bring them in, and they help manage things while I'm on the road, because I'm on the road a lot more now than I used to be. But I also leverage the WSI marketplace. I know when I first started off and it was just me, Alicia wasn't even part of the business running. We ended up aligning ourselves with one production center, which coincidentally was the one that Doug ran. And pretty much everything that I did went through Doug's production center. And so I got to know the team really well. They got to know me really well. And not that I ever abused it, but I treated them as an extension of my office. I thought of them as not just a supplier in the network, but they were my colleagues. And I knew if I called the office, if they could, they would shift things around and they would fit me in. And there were a handful of other consultants that I think took the time to build that relationship. But I treated them with the respect that I would treat any other employee or coworker, because that's really what they were to me. Alicia and I would go back to Toronto on an annual basis and take the entire office and their spouses out for dinner. And we'd stay at Doug and Linda's house, and it was just kind of a big family affair. And our business models have shifted and changed, and we've not been able to do that for the last couple of years. But I think one of the things that I loved about being able to do this is I didn't have to ramp up a big staff at the beginning. I could leverage the marketplace that WSI provided me that gave me the ability to deliver some really big projects with a lot of complexity that I didn't know how to do myself. But I remember when I was in training, Doug, and if you ever had the opportunity to meet Doug, he dresses real fancy. He looks like he came right off of, a New York City ad agency, payroll. The guy's sharp and really puts out a good first impression. And he rolled into training with this big old portfolio of all these websites and projects of things that he had done. And everybody was like, well, yeah, that's great, but that's you. We've not done any of that. And he says, guys, I am WSI, you're WSI. What we've done, you've done, because we're all part of the same network. So the 70 plus web awards that WSI has taken home over the last 11 or 12 years, I've got one of those. I'd like to have more, but that's, so the collective power of the network benefits everybody from first year all the way through. And I know you use the network as well. So it's a powerful thing that you can get a whole lot more done than everything's just going on your shoulders, because it'd be impossible to be where I'm at today if I had to do it all myself.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, it's the type of thing that can put your mind at ease, because you start the
Yeah,
business and you're going after your first client, and when you get it, you need to deliver. And when you've got a team behind you, which we have, it's really.
yeah.
So you've been around for a while. What are the highlights that you have had, while you've been in WSI? Because you've built yourself a great reputation in our network.
Oh boy. I've been fortunate to have received some awards from my peers. The very first year, that website that I called Doug on, that I had no clue what I was going to do, and he helped me through it, and we landed the deal. My very first project was a Web Award winner. I haven't gotten one since. So I don't know what that says about me, but I started off pretty strong. I've been asked to MC our global convention twice, which, being that I do, like yourself, public speaking, I'm very comfortable in front of crowds. I tend to have somewhat of a quirky sense of humor, which sometimes resonates. And even if a joke bombs, usually that gets a better laugh than if it was a really good joke. So, and I'm okay with that. I'm cool with that. And I guess the travel that I've been able to experience, I got an opportunity to go to Madrid and sit through your training to get LinkedIn certified, which I immediately brought back and delivered to a banking client. So there was instantaneous monetization. The extra day that I spent in Madrid, Neil Lappy and I were on Segway scooters for 4 hours exploring the city together and just had a blast. So there's just things that I've been able to experience beyond what I would have had the chance to experience staying in just a small little community bank here in Michigan.
Right. And tell me now, you also selected as one of the top guns, so I find it fantastic to be able to be part of that group. So what do you enjoy most about being?
Well, it gives me an excuse to say gun show, so I can do that. No, the Top Gun, I think I actually was part of the very first Top Gun, and that was one of the other trips I got to go to Spain. We were in Barcelona, and that was the very first Top Gun. So it was an honor to be there. I remember early on I would see the top 25 earners and all of the successful consultants, and just imagining one day, maybe I'll be a top 25 earner. And the Top Gun program has been really cool, because that's based off of income generation, but I think it's also based off of what corporate sees as leadership potential and the value that you bring to the network. And when I get around other Top Guns like yourself, there's a lot of information sharing that goes on. So I always get great ideas, but I like the fact that we're sharing ideas that the folks at corporate are there busily taking notes to see what they can bring back from all of us to help the newer consultants that are coming into the network understand what needs to be done to be successful. Here are all the mistakes that I made. Don't do these. And, my wife was in sales for 25 years, and, I learned a lot from her. She had a lot of I told you so moments, because sometimes you just have to experience yourself and do something, even if it's your wife that says you can't do that, you have to do it and go, oh, that doesn't work. And then she looks at you and she says, yeah, I told you that like 6 months ago. So I think this is helping the WSI network actually be a more powerful, more productive, more efficient network, because everybody that's been in the trenches for a number of years, but not to say that only people that are veterans. I mean, there's some relatively newer tenure individuals that have been invited to be part of the Top Gun, which I think is also beneficial. And I guess the only other thing, what's that?
No, it's really great that that you can be part of the future and driving the strategy of an organization like that we belong to. You don't just feel like you're just at the end, getting, we just be on your own. It's you're part of going forward, which is a fantastic thing if we can step up, and I think that's what you've really done.
Yeah. So it's been an honor. It's been a lot of fun.
So you've got all these things, but I'm sure you've got some big obstacles, because many of us, it's we work
Squirrel.
we work for corporates, and we're very fortunate. We have this big structure and a lot of skills, that help us, from a weakness perspective. But what are the biggest obstacles that you have faced when running your business, and how have you mastered them?
Well, you want to get that?
No, it wasn't planned.
My biggest obstacle is being on webinars with people that don't mute their phones. That's just super annoying.
It's dead
You
now.
know I'm kidding. I would say, as I'm looking at my phone going, I wonder if mine's turned on mute. I would say probably one of the challenges that I have, because you have people that are entrepreneurial focused, that are dream chasers and idea guys and big picture, but sometimes aren't so good at details. That that can get things going, that can have a great idea. This is awesome. But then when it comes time to dotting the I's and crossing the T's, I'm like, yeah, I don't want to do that.
Oh.
And that was one of the biggest challenges for me early on, is because I was, chief cook, bottle washer, you name it. I was doing the whole shebang. And now that we've gotten even busier, project management, time management, task management, those things are still somewhat of a challenge for me.
Right.
Because I like to play in the big picture world. I like to be more of a visionary. And that's where, particularly with Mark and Ellie, and Alicia as well, but with Mark and Ellie in particular, neither one of those individuals has any interest in really being in a sales role. They'll be on calls, they'll talk to customers, they're totally fine with that. And they're very much detail orientated. And I've told them, despite the fact that I'm your boss or your uncle or your godfather or whatever, when there's something that you need from me, you need to hunt me down and make me do it. And not that I'm going to be offended by it, but there will be days where I will get a text message, I'll get a WhatsApp message, I'll get an email, and I'll get messages on Skype. Did you edit the blog? Did you change the email? Did you check on this? Did you do that? And so I think understanding where your weaknesses are and filling those with people that can just make sure that those don't fall through the cracks. I've even delegated my inbox to them so that they can hop into my email at any point in time and look at my messages and go, hey, somebody just emailed you 2 days ago and you haven't responded back to them. Great. That's because if I'm on an airplane and I'm traveling and I get there and I'm tired and then I deliver a presentation the next day and then I'm back on a plane, it could be a 3-day spend where I'm not having a lot of real focused time to take a look at email.
Right.
So understanding where those gaps are and getting people within your organization to help fill those, I think is a really important thing. And making sure that the people on your team know that they can call bull on you and not be in trouble, and that they're expected to raise holy heck. I'll keep this family friendly. But that they can raise a little bit of a stink when maybe things aren't necessarily getting done.
Right.
And it's not to say that I'm off playing video games and doing something that's not important, but making sure that all that stuff gets taken care of. That's probably my biggest challenge, and I suspect will continue to be my biggest challenge until I step away from the business.
I guess it's focus on what you're good at and let them do the rest. Let them get on with it, because I've seen that's what you do.
Exactly.
So you got many skills, but what are some of the skills and talents that people do not know about you?
Well, I think I put in my pre-interview questionnaire. I'm fluent in Pig Latin.
Right.
Do you speak Patenley and Francais?
I wanted to
speak Patenley?
Yeah.
I actually said that one time. I was joking around. We were talking about LinkedIn profiles. And in LinkedIn, you can indicate if you're, speak any other languages. And I joked about how Pig Latin was not a language that was supported or recognized by LinkedIn.
Right.
I'm like, I could totally own that vertical, you know, Pig Latin speaking digital marketers that were former bankers. I think I'm like the only one. But I said that at a conference one time, and I had one woman in the back row say, I speak Patenley, which is I speak Pig Latin. And we carried on this little mini Pig Latin conversation while we were in the conference, and everybody else was just looking at us. And so that was pretty interesting. So, you know, avid cyclist. I've ridden a mountain bike 100 miles. I've ridden a road bike 300 miles. You know, I like to pedal. I've done a couple of half Ironman distance triathlons in my day. Coming from not a swimming background was certainly an accomplishment. I do a lot of fundraising for a certain charity that's focused on eliminating neuroblastoma. I had a dear friend of mine lose a child to neuroblastoma, and so I've created a kind of a side nonprofit as a cycling fundraiser, and I've raised about $25,000 over the last few years to help support the CNCF. And so just, you know, some of those little things maybe around there.
Right, fantastic. So just moving on a bit. So what goals do you have for yourself that you want to accomplish in the next year? Because I've seen, you know, you and I have spoken about speaking careers and training careers, and we keep on moving along with this. So what's next for Eric Cook?
Well, you know, I really enjoy the speaking. You know, I was in Pennsylvania just this week at a lending conference talking to commercial lenders about how to leverage LinkedIn as a strategy to connect with their businesses, build relationships. So I'd like to see that increase more. I'm putting together some thoughts around creating an online training curriculum that I could introduce to the banking world. So folks that maybe want to do some learning from the convenience of their office, they don't have an opportunity to get to a conference, being able to deliver that on a more regular basis, really play off of the niche that I think that I've built, which could expand into other areas as well. So while bankers certainly are one type of an executive, there's certainly a lot of other executives out there that probably could be doing a better job connecting. You know, the term B2B, business to business, is thrown around a lot on the internet, but at the end of the day, it's really P2P, regardless of what industry or what organization, because it's people connecting with other people. And I think if you can teach people how to do that, I remember when I started in the world of banking, my father said, you will quickly find out people will choose to do business with you because you are their banker, not because you work for the bank. People do business with me because I'm Eric Cook and I know their business and I take care of them. WSI supports that, and it's there, and it makes me that much more of a valuable asset at the end of the day. But really, it's the relationships that you develop with your clients and prospects and people that are trusting you. And so just trying to figure out a way that I can do more of that, and then kind of diving into my internal business and systematizing things a little bit more so that the business can operate a little bit more autonomously without me having to be involved. And I understand when there's banking issues at play, that is going to require my brain, because that's where all the banking stuff sits. But some of the operational things, developing procedures, and then just making sure that whoever is working with me, whether it's you know, a Mark or an Ellie, or if it's a partner within the WSI network, that I'm as helpful and as valuable to them as they are to me.
Great. So tell me, where do you see yourself in 5 years' time? You've done 11. There's still quite a few more to go.
Well, if my wife had anything to say about it, she'd say retired, because she still says that she's retired, although she does the books and she does a boatload of work to keep everything afloat. So she jokes about it, but she's not. She just doesn't get paid for what she does. She's cheap labor. But in a family business, it's kind of what you do. I see me doing a lot of the similar of what I'm doing now. You know, we may be living someplace different. We might be traveling a little more. We might be a little bit more niche. I'd like to have, you know, some sort of a training program in place. You know, there's always that lure of passive income where you can create some sort of an online environment where people are willing to compensate you on a reoccurring basis because you know stuff that they want to also know. So it'd be nice to have some sort of a platform where people are paying me on a monthly basis, and I get to share all the information that I know and tying it in and helping people understand how it makes a difference to their business. Not because it's cool and it's gee whiz and everybody's doing it. At the end of the day, it needs to make business sense. And that's where I think the banker in me always is looking at, you know, what's in it, what's the ROI, you know, where are all the pennies going. But the digital person in me is also looking at kind of the new stuff that's out there and then filtering some of that out to make sure that, you know, while everything is certainly cool on the internet, what really makes the most business sense, and just probably being a little bit better at that and just continuing the speaking and traveling and kind of keeping that going.
Great. Now, you know, early on in the beginning of our interview, you mentioned Doug Shust. And when you see this guy, we know we can't be a Doug Shust. And, you know, just listening to you, there's many consultants out there say, you know, I just can't be an Eric Cook either, you know, just because of the way that
it's probably a good thing.
The way we just build ourselves. But anybody who's like considering, you know, entering into this business with WSI, what advice would you give them? You know, because I can see many of us have just taken different paths, and so it's quite strange that you probably join a franchise thinking there's a roadmap that you're going to stick to the whole way, but I've seen many of us change. So what advice would you give someone?
Well, and that was probably one of the, and you know, it's interesting that you made that observation, because that was one of my roadblocks that I had to get over before I decided that I wanted to join WSI. Because when I saw the word franchise, I immediately thought of McDonald's and Subway and Quiznos, and you know, I didn't want to make hamburgers like everybody else. There's no uniqueness to that. There's no and I'm not saying that somebody that owns a McDonald's franchise isn't creative, but you have to do everything exactly the way that corporate says you have to do it. Your cheeseburger looks just like everybody else's cheeseburger.
Right.
And the interesting part about the WSI business model is it provides the ecosystem, it provides the training, it provides access to all of the quality services and production teams and resources that we can use at our disposal. But at the end of the day, you know, when I told corporate that I thought that maybe niche, I always mess this up. So when I say it, I say niche. But when I'm talking to my Canadian friends, I say niche.
And
so
to me, it's niche.
I'm going to say niche.
Niche is good.
So when I said I was going to focus on the banking niche, they were somewhat concerned because in Canada, they don't have as many community banks. We've got several thousand community banks here in the States that all need help, that have marketing folks that are taxed, that haven't been able to keep up because, so I saw that there's a real opportunity. And in the Canadian world, with Toronto being our headquarters, they were like, not so much that's going to work for you, because, you know, they're thinking of their business model. But they let me go with it, and it's worked out really, really well. So I've played off of what my prior life was. Right. So I understand and respect and leverage the 15 years that I had in the industry and have stayed in the industry. So even though I say 15 years as a banker, I really tack on the 11 that I've been with WSI as banking, because I've been working with banks still. I just haven't been a banker, but right. I've been a service provider to banks. But I think when you join the network, don't try to become a Francois or a Doug Shust or an Eric Cook or a Neil Lappy or anybody else. figure out what it is that you're passionate about and what you enjoy, and why is it that you want to be in the digital space, because this certainly is an industry that is not going anywhere. It is constantly evolving. There's learning opportunities. And if you can differentiate yourself and understand business principles and how to tie that into where the technology and some of the services are headed, I think there's a real fun career path that's there, because there's a lot of people that are hanging a shingle because they know how to build a Facebook page. They don't have a foggy clue about business strategy or how to spell ROI or what that even means to a business. And if you can demonstrate that you've got a business's interest first and then roll in some of those stuff, which is a lot of what we talk about within WSI, that's going to give you a real differentiation. And being able to say that you're part of the world's largest digital agency network with offices in almost 80 countries around the world, and you've been in business since before Google and Facebook and Twitter, and that's a really powerful thing to say. Even if WSI isn't necessarily a household name, knowing that that is behind you will allow you to be very confident. And I know that there are deals that I wasn't sure how I was going to deliver, but I didn't worry, because I knew that whether it's Doug or you or somebody else, that I could call you and you would help me and we would make it happen. We just experienced that this week, as a matter of fact. You and I did. And so
you put me under a lot of stress this week.
So you'll be happy to know the board meeting went really well last night.
That's really good. Well, that's really great. And so, Mr. Cook, what would your personal motto be?
I busted open a Chinese cookie one time, or a fortune cookie. And on the back of it, it said something like, do what you love what you do, something along those lines.
Life
I
is
don't know
short.
if I got like a formal. What's that?
Yeah, you end up with do what you love what you do, life is short, I think it's...
Yeah, exactly. And, I alluded to my friend whose daughter passed from cancer, and right around that time, that was when I was really starting to see the power of technology and how we were able to build an online community through the website that I created for her, and bring people in from literally all over the world to support her and her family. This little 5-year-old girl that was fighting for her life, that unfortunately didn't make it and passed at the age of 9. But when I saw that, and I just saw how the internet could get pulled in to be able to try to make a difference, and I know that it did in the 4 years that she was battling this disease, something just clicked in my head, and I just said, I got to figure out a way that I can leverage this to be able to help other people. And whether that's through nonprofit, or whether it's through business, or diving back into the community banking space and helping all of my banking friends, be competitive against the mega banks and the big boys that are out there, because they're the ones that are really making an impact in the communities and making things possible for small businesses. So it's a really long motto, but there's a lot in there.
So we're well into this interview, and I'm in South Africa, so we're 7 hours ahead of you. It's my happy hour right now. So so if you went to happy hour with me, what would you order?
Well, the first I would order you a Jack,
right?
Because I know you like that, and I've actually brought you some Jack paraphernalia in the past. Right. So for those of you that don't know, Jack Daniels is a close personal friend of Francois. He has an entire room dedicated to the gentleman. So I'm surprised that you're not doing the interview from down there, to be honest with you. Maybe that's just your secret. So if my usual go-to is probably a nice tall glass of Guinness. Right. I've not made it to Ireland. There was a training in Dublin that I did not get a chance to get to this year, and I'm very bitter about that because I wanted to go. that would have been a perfect time. Or a Moscow Mule in the summertime. If
Right.
I'm with my buddy Shane, who's my banker friend who had the daughter that passed from cancer, it would probably be a number of Red Bull and vodkas or Jaeger bombs, because we tend to get a little crazy. But you know, nothing too extreme. But and I do love a craft beer as well. So we've got a client that is heavily involved in the craft brewing association industry, and so I'm a big fan of craft beers as well.
Great. Well, thanks for sharing that with me. Now, you've spent quite a lot of time with me today, and I really appreciate it. Now, if you could be anywhere else rather than talking to me right now at this minute, where would you want to be?
Well, of course, the number one is right here with you. So, you know, we'll take that out of there. I would say probably in the RV, traveling around someplace with our 2 golden retrievers. We bought a little Jeep Wrangler that we can tow now behind our little RV. So we've got our little fun caravan that takes us on the road, and probably on my way to a mountain bike trail or some sort of an outdoor hiking area or a camping place, just to get into some quiet. Of course, I need to make sure that my Wi-Fi hotspot could get internet connectivity, because, you know, I got to work from the picnic table in the morning with a nice cup of coffee.
That's right.
But in the afternoon, bug out, take the mountain bike out on the trail, put my phone in my jersey on high volume in case a client calls, and I can pull off and try to not breathe real heavy in their ear while I'm getting off my bike, taking a call. But yeah, the office is wherever I'm at the moment. And so,
yeah,
but
that's
usually it'd be a road trip, I would say, someplace in the United States, seeing the beautiful country and just enjoying the outdoors and the family.
That's great. I think that's the beauty about the business that we're in. We can be mobile. We have to be connected, but we can be mobile and enjoy it from where we are. So, Eric, I really appreciate the time that you put together today, and, you know, for sharing, you know, some of your insights. I think it's really important, you know, for anybody that's you know, looking to join this network. There's a lot of things that they have to go out and investigate and see. And I think by us putting a video series together of our consultants, and whether it's the top guys or even the new ones that come in, just, you know, will give other people a good idea of how we are, how we work, and you know, how we help each other. I think that's really key. So, Eric, I'll give you, you know, your last say, and we'll be publishing this very soon. And I really appreciate you. Thank you.
I think you said it all. I appreciate you taking the initiative on this and helping to spread the word. I think it's a great business, and, you know, if you've got the right personality and some creativity and some drive, you know, really the sky's the limit. Like Neil said, probably my biggest regret is I didn't peek up and look around and see like something existed like this several years before. So
that's right.
So it's been a fun ride. I'm looking forward to seeing you again online at an event. We still need to get you guys up to the cottage, and I don't think we'll ever be able to go on an RV trip together because you're in South Africa and I'm in Michigan. So getting those big vehicles across the water is going to be a challenge, but
I can always rent one, no problem there.
Exactly.
So thank you very much, Eric. I appreciate it. Give my regards to Alicia, and of course the two puppies that you've got there. And anybody out there, feel free, you know, if you watch this and you're considering, you know, maybe joining a network like ours, a franchise, digital marketing, you're welcome to contact Eric Cook or myself at any time. Thank you very much. Goodbye for now.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Francois. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Eric. Bye.